Anyway, welcome. I'm Dr. Vicki Markovich, and I'm superintendent for Oxford Community Schools. I am pleased to have you here tonight, and perhaps we'll have some more folks get in as they trek from our parking lot to our auditorium here. We're going to start on time. We have with us the independent investigation company, Guidepost Solutions. They're here tonight and today, this afternoon and tonight. They were here this morning hosting 3 public meetings. This is the second of today's meetings. Within these meetings, Guidepost is going to provide a brief overview of part 1 of their independent investigation, which has focused on threat and suicide assessments, as well as physical security for the Oxford Community School District. Guidepost will address any questions from community members pertaining to this report. All questions are going to be submitted via question cards. They're available at the back of the room. We have Mr. Barnett here who can bring them to you if you wave at him, if you don't want to get out. If any time during the meeting you need more, we'll get them to you, we'll collect them, and then we're going to look at them. We're going to sort them. If there are questions related to the Guidepost report, they're going to be questions directed to the Guidepost panel here. If there are questions directed toward the district, I will take them and answer them at another point in time. If we have time in tonight's meeting, Allison, if there are security questions, or myself, if there are district questions, we'll try to answer them tonight. Anything we can't answer tonight will be answered within the next couple of days. Personally, to those of you who asked, as well as in an FAQ sheet that we're going to be developing. And the frequently asked questions are going to be questions you can in tonight, today, tonight, this morning. And once we get all of those answers in line, we'll be posting that for everyone's information. Guidepost will not be answering questions from the media today, nor accepting interviews. The meeting is going to end at 5 p.m. Even if we're done earlier, you all must stay until 5 p.m. It's just, this is the second meeting, so. If you have any additional questions beyond that time that you have not been able to get into this session, you're certainly welcome to come at 6:30. You're certainly welcome to get them to us in any way, shape, or form you can, and we will try to get you the answers. Now I'd like to introduce the Executive Vice President of Guidepost Solutions, Emerging Issues and Technology Practice Group Leader, who is Brad Disick, and I'd also like to introduce his team. Mr. Disick is joined today by Crystal Jazierski, who is a Senior Managing Director at Guidepost Solutions, where she advises on compliance and risk management effectiveness and conducting internal investigations. She has 25 years of experience across the federal government and private sector, including oversight and investigations with the Judiciary Committee of the U.S. House of Representatives. Also on the panel is Jim Hayes, a 20-year veteran of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. He has extensive background in federal law enforcement, previously served as a special agent in charge for U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, has led numerous high-profile criminal investigations. In addition, Russell Holsky is on that team. He is Senior Managing Director in the Washington, D.C. office, focusing on investigations, due diligence, and compliance. He brings over 30 years of investigative experience in U.S. and international criminal, civil, and administrative, as an administrative supervisory investigator for the United States Department of Justice. Leading the team is Mr. Disick, regularly conducts sensitive and complex investigations, has extensive experience working with educational organizations after traumatic incidents, including the University of Michigan, including the Southern Baptist Convention. He has leadership roles with the U.S. Department of Justice. He is a graduate of Michigan State University James Madison College and its College of Law. So at this point in time, I turn this meeting over to Mr. Disick.
Thank you, Dr. Markovich. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm standing here because the TV is facing you so I can, see what you're seeing. As Dr. Markovich suggested, my name is Brad Disick. I'm Executive Vice President at Guidepost Solutions. I want to thank all of you for attending here today. We're really looking forward to hearing your questions, and to the extent they do not involve the second report, giving you answers. We started doing this process. We're currently the monitor for the New York City Housing Authority. And we also, as Dr. Markovich suggested, worked at the University of Michigan. And something that we found very effective was engaging with all stakeholders. And when we say all stakeholders, that includes the community. The community is probably the most important stakeholder. So it's important that we, the district and the board, hear from you to learn what your priorities are and what's most important to you. So as we present this high-level overview of our first report, please think through questions so that we can provide you with answers. So our first report is on threat and suicide assessments and physical security. We were hired in July of 2022 by the Oxford Community School District Board of Education to independently investigate, first, current conditions. And by current conditions, that includes current school safety and security policies and practices, including threat and suicide assessments and physical security. Report 2, which is forthcoming, will include school safety and security policies and practices in place at the time of the shooting, including for threat assessments and physical security, interactions with the shooter before the shooting, and actions before, during, and after the shooting by the district, the board, and other stakeholders involved. Next slide. So our first report on current conditions. This report is a forward-looking, objective assessment of the district's current safety and security conditions. And it includes constructive recommendations to help make current conditions and practices more sustainable and effective. Overall, Guidepost found that Oxford Community Schools and Oxford High School current policies, procedures, and practices around threat and suicide assessment and physical security are satisfactory and appropriate. Next slide. The district's threat and suicide assessment policies, procedures, and practices are robust, satisfy best practices, and at times exceed existing policy and guidelines requirements. However, as some of you who have read, or maybe all of you who have read the report, it's not perfect. There are improvements that can be made. Those improvements include the execution of the current policies and practices. And in our first report, as it relates to threat and suicide assessments, we made 8 recommendations. As it relates to Oxford High School's physical security measures in place, we found that they were not only commensurate with its current risk environment, but also any foreseeable future risk. But they also surpass those of most schools across the U.S. But again, they're not perfect. There's opportunity for improvement. There's opportunity to do things better. So we recommended 11 high priority recommendations and 15 lower priority recommendations. That's the high level overview. We look forward to your questions. I believe there's a note card process. I don't know who's collecting the note cards. We look forward to hearing your questions.
We apologize for the delay. We're reviewing all of the questions to determine what's best answered by guideposts, the district, or the school board, depending on the question. Okay, so the first question is, were the issues and analyses regarding bullying considered beyond the general issue of bullying and separated by the source of such bullying, i.e. bullying related to issues such as isolation, dress, race, and gender issues?
Did you look at your bullying policies?
So as part of our interview process, we spoke to people that are involved in the bullying prevention program, and when asked how they interface with threat assessments, they were very clear that they are a source, a reliable source of information that the threat assessment team can lean upon and can make inquiries with, and then either have that develop into a threat assessment or not, depending on the content of the bullying that's going on. So it is a piece, and they're not a member of the threat assessment team, but they are a valuable source of information for the threat assessment team.
Did that answer the question? No.
Do you have any follow-up for that to get a better answer?
Well, what I was looking for was in your work, your analysis, if you looked at bullying as a general issue, or if you looked at what was leading to that bullying, because it contributes to an overall climate in the mental health environment of our students.
So we did look at bullying, we did look at the report, I think that was presented to the school board. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Is it on? Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, sorry. So we did look at bullying. I actually personally attended the board meeting where the bullying presentation was made. And I made this comment at the first session this morning. When we look at bullying, there's two metrics that I typically really focus in on. That is, where are people reporting and how are they reporting? Where is what you suggest about culture, climate, environment? Do people have trust and confidence in the systems to come to the district and report bullying? If they don't feel comfortable, they're going to maybe go to a parent, maybe they'll go to a friend, and that fact of being bullied will never be communicated to the district, so the district is not aware that it has a problem and needs to respond. So where they're coming, having that environment where they can feel confident and have trust in reporting to the district systems is one of the first metrics that they look at. So if that metric's low, we know we have a problem. We have a cultural problem, maybe we have a structural problem. Something that I really look to focus on when it comes to reporting is interfaces, right? So when you interface with, say, online, or you interface with a teacher, what training or what does the interface look like? What's the user experience when you're communicating with a person or a system, right? So we did look at those things. We looked at those things in the context of whether bullying could lead to someone having suicidal ideation, becoming a threat to the school and to the student staffs in the school. Did we write specifically on bullying? Not necessarily, as you may have read the report as you saw, but we did consider it in our evaluation and in our assessment, and that kind of goes into the more holistic structure of what's currently in place here in the district. And as the district knows, they have work to do there. Dr. Markovich just came in 5 months ago. They just did a study. They're learning about the study. We got a new board member, who's been here for about 5 months. They're learning about the issues, and they're learning about solutions. They're talking about solutions, and I think that's the first step. And I think they know what needs to be addressed.
So I think this is an example of a question that Guidepost has part of the answer, and perhaps the district has part of the answer. And the whole bullying issue has certainly been on my plate, and it's been 4 months, by the way, just to keep the record straight. But it's taken a lot of our attention and concern from the board, from the administration, from our staff. We dream of being a bully-free school zone. I mean, that's the goal of where we want to go. We're not there yet. We've surveyed students once to try to find out where are our biggest problems so that we can focus our efforts on those specific areas where we have bigger problems, those particular school buildings or those particular age groups. We don't have the results yet, but we also address the bullying and safety and how I feel about myself in my school with a climate survey that was just completed last month. We have a third party collecting the data and analyzing it and writing the report for us. So again, it'll be an objective third party coming back to us with what those climate surveys said. And that will inform us even more on this issue, plus a myriad of others. We also just at Guideposts request, we re-interviewed or surveyed kids. Do you have a trusted adult in your school? And I believe we did this with middle school and high school. And then we were able to share those results. I don't have the percents in my mind, but when I answer my question to you on the FAQ, I'll pull that data. And we did have, I know it was a significant number of kids who said, yes, I have a trusted adult. And that was very positive for us. As I said, we have so far been trying to approach the problem in a very targeted, focused way because there's only so much time in a day and you have lots of other things to do, and we wanted to try to get key results where they were needed most. We have plans to go on a broader base, a parent university program around bullying itself next year, some additional programs for students that are around this, especially the area of cyberbullying, which is just a conundrum for everybody because our hands are somewhat tied as to how much we can intercede with that. And so there will be more on it. And I guess I'm giving you a long answer because I would like to make the point that this is not something that's going to be resolved in 2 months. And it is not something we're going to stop paying attention to in 2 months. This is ongoing. And we're going to continually monitor and manage and collect data to make sure that we're making progress toward that bully-free school.
Thank you.
And sir, I'll just add, those specific areas that you mentioned are covered in the risk factors when the suicide assessment team is with the student. So they do cover those issues in the risk factors and talk directly to the student about those issues of bullying around those specific areas.
The next question, the person wants to inquire about employee participation desires of Guidepost.
Employee participation from Oxford.
Yes, it just says, I plan to inquire about employee participation desires of Guidepost.
Not sure.
Am I allowed to speak, or?
Well, just maybe a little more clarification on your question. Is it Oxford's participation?
Yes, but I need to reference a section in the report, and I thought we would be able to come up and ask our questions.
So what section of the report?
It's a section called Board and District Cooperation.
That helps Guideposts.
Okay.
Again, the reason we want it in writing and not just Google is so that when we do our FAQ, when we gather our data, when we try to publish what's been asked and what's been answered, we have specificity.
It would be quite a bit for me to write out, so.
But now, does that help you, Brad? No,
Yeah, I'm familiar with the question. What I would say is beginning in November, when Dan D'Alessandro became board president, we started to see an increase in cooperation. Beginning in January with Dr. Markovich, Dr. Lewin, they started at the district. We saw a substantial increase in participation. I think the tone that they set by interacting with us, showing everybody else by example, that this is not a gotcha, this is an objective assessment. This is not, we're not, trying to find someone to throw under the bus. That gave people confidence to come forward and meet with us. So beginning in January and explicitly, the amount of cooperation increased significantly. Now, with that said, again, it's not universal. It's not perfect. There are people that we would love to meet with who have still not sat down with us. And we're still here. There's still a second report. If they want to come and they want to sit down with us, they want to meet with us, we would love to talk to them. But we did see enough cooperation beginning in January that will very effectively be able to produce, obviously a very in-depth first report and a very detailed second report.
Can we speak to each other?
Go ahead.
So are you, when the section of the report says, the board also directed district administration to ask all district employees to cooperate with our investigation. Does that mean only district employees that you wanted to speak to, or at some point did you want to speak with all district employees?
My understanding is back in June or July of 2022, a memo was sent out by former Superintendent Ken Weaver asking everyone to cooperate with their investigation. So it was everyone. From that point, we then made specific requests for people we thought may have material information. We did circle back with everyone, and certain people who we were not necessarily interested in speaking with, maybe they had an interaction with the shooter in the past that nobody was aware of. We did ask them to certify for us an email in writing that they did not have any information. But other than that, we had no reason to request an interview with those people.
Okay. So you were mostly interested in speaking only to certain people?
It was over 100, yes.
Okay.
It was a large.
Okay. And then just a quick comment, I wanted to thank you for the recommendation of including support staff on threat assessments. There's a recommendation in your report about expanding the teams to include like other people. So like cafeteria staff, bus drivers that you mentioned. I thought that was a good recommendation because I think that there are people within the district, aside from teachers and counselors, who interact with a lot of students.
Thank you. And let's comment on making this. I think those staff who have come forward and cooperated with the investigation or the security assessment, they should be commended. I mean, if you're aware of someone who did, and you're a member of the community, you should thank them. There was a strong undercurrent of fear for people to cooperate with us, and a lot of people did come forward and did help out in this process. And, I think they should be thanked and they should be commended for doing so.
Thank you. The next question, in September of last year, Guidepost, Varna, and attorneys were all in attendance in a closed session meeting in which then board members, Tom and Corey, were also present. According to them, information was shared that pertained to the truth, in quotation marks. Both Tom and Corey resigned immediately after, but have not been able to disclose what this information was due to the Open Meetings Act. Guidepost CEO Andrew O'Connell was present at this meeting and is privy to the goings-on. Will this information be reflected in your next report?
So I was not here at that time, but I just want to put out the caution that this question references something that occurred in closed session. There are, through the Open Meetings Act, many laws, many requirements, many procedural requirements, especially about what is shared outside of closed session. The board has gotten extensive legal opinions on this, and I just caution us that if any of us are going to respond to this, anything discussed in closed session, members who go into closed session to be part of any of those discussions or to be an audience to those discussions agree that they will not repeat any of those closed session discussions to the public. So I just wanted to put that out there before we went any further with the question.
Putting aside, I'm not familiar with, obviously I was not in this executive session meeting, and I'm not familiar what was discussed in the executive session meeting. But as far as I'm concerned, everything that is relevant will be in the second report.
Did you evaluate the safety plans put into place following threat assessment? If so, how was the follow-through? Were they sufficient? Best practice?
Safety plan
Yes.
after the suicide assessments.
If you had a suicide or a crime assessment and substantiated,
Yep.
you're only reading on risk. Did you look at any of the safety plans that were created? If so, did they follow through on the safety plans?
Russ, want to take that one?
Sure. The plans themselves have the copies of the documents have the safety plans attached to them, and we can see that they were completed. There were several action items, let's say, or plans to follow up with the students, and there was actually a date assigned that the counselor would circle back with the student. And so we did find that the counselor worked closely with the student on solutions, a fidget device or coping mechanisms, like things that will help them work through the way they were feeling. And so, yes, they were quite detailed and individualized for the student and not uniform.
Did you check to make sure like they were being followed?
I'm sorry, it's hard for us to get your question down because it's not in writing and I can't hear it.
Pardon?
I said it's hard for us to get your question down in order for us to include on the FAQ sheet. Because see, it's hard for you to hear me right now. So would you please tell me the question again so that I'm sure I know how to include it in the FAQ sheet?
Yeah, I'm just curious about the safety planning, the following through any kind of substantiated threat, whether it's a suicide threat or to others, kind of what that looks like. If it is following best practice, if they're following through, all those types of things.
Let me try. Let me try and confirm.
She's asking about the efficacy of the safety plans.
All right, so this is a concern of what kind of safety plans, what kind of follow-through plans do we have after a threat assessment, after a suicide assessment, or an event. And I will tell you that in the board policy, in the administrative guidelines, in the protocols we've developed for that, there are requirements to, once the level of threat, either side, is determined, there needs to be recommendations for plans to be followed through for the students that are involved. And those plans are then turned into the executive director of safety, security, and student services. And since I've been here, also to me, so that we have a hard copy of all of those assessments from September through March of this year, and that now we have electronic copy through Navigate 360, and those plans for what happens next are within those documents, and they are randomly checked. Principals are very, very good about keeping us informed about the progress, especially in those areas where we've kind of flagged them as bigger concerns. Now, I don't know if Guideposts had a chance to see any of that as they were talking with people or reviewing things, but if they did, perhaps you can add.
We did not look at any progress reports. We did not acquire any progress reports, and we did not talk to actual subjects of the threat assessments or the suicide assessments to ask them about the follow-up.
So, boy, it's pretty early yet. Does anybody have any other questions? Okay, let's pull this one up.
In terms of the safety plans, as I said, it's an excellent question, because a lot of people focus on the assessment themselves, and the safety plan also serves as a control. So putting together a safety plan, making sure that the well-being of the child of the student, is the priority, particularly before they go back in the classroom. I think it's very important. We did look at that. That is in our report. We did see that they were doing that. I think your question is a step further, and how are they following up on that?
That's correct,
Yes, and I think where we looked at, what we tested, was whether they were doing safety plans, and we were able to confirm that yes, they were in all situations. So even the situations that our report found they were not asking whether the student had access to a weapon, we still found that they were doing safety plans.
There's a question we have, I think it's a district question, probably two parts, Alice and Vicki. With the amount of turnover, thank you, occurring within the district, how do you intend not only to retain teachers, but to keep all new hires current on all policies? Also, who is responsible for entering student behavior information into PowerSchool? Who can access it? And are teachers notified there is now information regarding students waiting to be read? Information regarding students waiting to be read. So when I take this back to this office and I think about it more, I may give you a bigger answer. But right now, we do, like every other district, we do have turnover, and we do have, it is a challenge to retain teachers. Not necessarily, I mean, this is universal. This is probably any district you could go have a conversation with. Teaching is a profession that's not attracting a whole lot of people into it, and it's a profession that continually gathers more and more challenges in trying. So I think there's a national effort, there's a state effort, there's certainly our local effort to keep people coming for us. I have been pleasantly surprised at the fact that every opening we've posted this year, we have been able to fill with very capable, well-credentialed people. And I have colleagues in neighboring districts who can't say that. So we have been fortunate. In terms of new hires being current on all policies, we are reviewing all of the required information, required videos, required questionnaires and assessments that teachers have to take and or other employees have to take as they onboard to our district, and we're upgrading those. As an example, this past fall, when people came in and were hired into our district, there was no required educational piece beyond board policy and district practice on just the nature of bullying, kind of this national brain tank of bullying and how as a teacher you need to intervene with it and what our best practices. And we're going to use that as an onboarding tool in addition to then the person going into our board policy and guidelines. And we're not doing that just for bullying. That's for harassment, that's for a lot of other things that are required to onboard. So those are being upgraded. People will be required to do that. And no matter when they're hired, they have to onboard through these things that we think are important for them to know, understand, and be able to do. Student behavior information, and Allison could probably talk more about the other training that we're putting forward for folks. We do use PowerSchool. We currently have, I believe, 3 PowerSchool managers in the district, and those managers have full control of the PowerSchool platform itself. There are a list of people who are allowed access to PowerSchool in order to get the information. There are, however, very few people allowed into PowerSchool to change, edit, or remove any information. That's pretty tightly controlled. We also have, and I can't remember the name of it, Todd, maybe you can help me. What do we call the big information software bucket we have that collects everything?
EduClimber.
EduClimber, thank you. We also have a software warehouse called EduClimber that teachers can access, and that would have things in it like a student's disciplinary record. It would have things in it like the some of the test scores they've achieved. It would have things in it like the SABRS data that would have been collected. And that's what teachers can use, and that's what a assessment team would use for sure. That's what a bullying investigation would use for sure, in order to gather data on the whole child over time, so that we're not just looking at a snapshot. And I'll let Allison go on with other kinds of trainings that we are providing people when they come in.
So additional trainings, we're doing as much as we can in-house to be able to do trainer of trainer. One such is the standard response protocol through the I Love You Guys Foundation. That is something I am a trainer of trainer in. Both my school safety administrator and myself are trainers of trainers for the BTAM model, which is for behavior threat assessment management using the NTAC model. I will be doing this summer for Prepare Level 1 training, which Oakland Schools had come and provided that. That's more of our safety, our emergency operation plan management. And then we have the school safety administrator will additionally be going to participate in an ALICE trainer of trainer. So in addition to the videos that we will show, we will have the on-site people where we're not waiting for other entities to come train us. We're able to provide that training in-house and be able to provide training to a more variety of staff as they're coming back from their summer vacation.
Any other questions?
So, can I just clarify something on what you said?
I'm sorry.
I said, can I just clarify something very quickly? In the power school, so for example, if a teacher enters information about a student, does it notify the rest of the teachers that there's new information to be read on that student is what I want to know? Like, or
I don't know.
They didn't know, but they go, well,
Okay, the question is if a teacher enters into Power School, I'm talking to the people doing the FAQ. If a teacher enters into Power School, do all teachers that have that child automatically know? My answer to you is I don't know, and none of the 3 Power School people are here tonight. So that's a question I'll take back, and I'll get you the answer. Okay.
Any questions on physical security?
So I have a question about physical security. A lot of it is directed towards the high school, but is it also involving like the elementaries too?
The physical security part?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to let them answer, but I just want the FAQ people to know. We had the same question this morning. A lot of the physical security stuff is focused on the high school. Does it involve any other buildings or not? Did you hear that?
I did. Thank you for the question. The original intent was to do a district-wide security review. So of all the buildings, elementary, middle school, high school, auxiliary, alternative. And because of the challenges we had with cooperation up until January, it was just not feasible to do a security review. So we really focused and honed in on the high school. If the district asked us to complete that for the other facilities and buildings, we'd be happy to do that. But again, we would need cooperation.
So I'll just say that other than our EOP, our emergency operating plan, which is sequestered for good reason, it's what keeps us secure. We are pretty open about the safety and security measures we have in every building. Just like we are looking at the guidepost report very seriously and taking their recommendations very seriously. Allison and her group of people have also audited each and every one of our other buildings. The other day, she brought me a list of things we need to add and buy and purchase and install in order to close some of the areas where we just need to have a little bit more. And that has been done in every building in our district. I'll let Allison talk a little bit more about that. I don't know that we need an outside provider at this point, or a lot of it will depend on what we can gather ourselves. We are also talking to many experts in the field. If we have a concern about cameras, we are out there talking to experts in the field about cameras. If we have a concern about our radios, we're out there talking to people about radios. If we have a concern about night locks, we're out there talking to people who provide solutions to night locks. So sometimes when you're addressing these kinds of issues, you go to the people in that particular niche. But I'll let Allison go further.
As Dr. Markovich said, the school safety administrator and I did go through building by building as part of our time in the,
I was listening to you, and it was slow.
okay. The school safety administrator and I were, we assessed each building as part of our own personal onboarding, as both of us have had training in assessing buildings, and being able to look at not only what was assessed in March, but also what our own tools have that we have access to. So being able to see from the report in March what needed to be brought up to speed, and then as Dr. Markovich said, and those of you who are in attendance to board meetings have seen, I have been coming forth with safety and security requests to be able to improve across the district. One thing that we brought recently was the cell and radio service. For those of you that have been in this district, we know that that's something we needed to work on. So we brought people in to evaluate each of our campuses to figure out what the best next steps were. We are working on updating cameras, especially at our elementary schools, but we are doing that on all of our campuses. And so we went through with our security team, with the principals, with people from the camera installation on what angles and where the best places would be. We engage with our SROs to be able to have those conversations. And so you will see we're coming forth with that and continually working to strengthen this district. But we're also not able to share everything because it is part of the safety and security of all stakeholders when they're on our property. And so we want to be able to ensure that it's a constant cycle, and that we're not saying we have this or we took the recommendations from Guidepost and then we're good. We're going to take this, much like we took the SEC report from March, and be able to strengthen and build. And part of that will be including all members of our team to be able to do that.
Just one comment on physical security. We did look at the high school extensively, so there were no gaps in our review and our assessment of the high school. So I just want everybody to have that certainty that we were very strong and thorough as applied to that structure.
If there are, I'll follow my own rule and get to the microphone.
If there are no other questions, I really won't hold you till 5 o'clock. I'll say you're welcome to stay here and wait with us until 6:30, or you're welcome to go take a break on this wonderful sunny day. And thank you again for coming. And again, if you notice, if a question pops up and you need an answer, you can email me, the superintendent's office, and we will get through to you. And if it's an answer that has to come from Guidepost, I know they are very responsive. They will get back to us as well. So thank you very much, folks. I appreciate your interest and your commitment to Oxford Community Schools.
Thank you.